Hey, Steve Gamache here with another Chef Knives to Go quick look product review, and what we're looking at this time is the Yoshimitsu Aogami or Blue No. 2 Gyuto 240mm knife. As stated, this line of knives has a core steel of what's known as Aogami or Blue Paper No. 2 reactive high carbon steel from Hitachi. Heat treats around 62, 61, 62 Rockwell on that core steel. And that's what they shoot for. And these are handmade, so the dimensions and the weights and thickness and stuff will vary a little bit from knife to knife. But the construction on these is a 3-layer sandwich with softer stainless steel cladding on either side of that reactive core steel. So you can see the core steel showing at the edge right there, and so that's the only part of the blade that's reactive, so it makes maintenance a little bit easier. The weight on this knife is 6.6 ounces, so it's kind of a light middleweight. These are fairly thin blades for the style of construction that they are, so we'll take a look at that in a minute. But anyway, the weight is 186 grams or 6.6 ounces on this particular sample. Edge length on this one's 248, so it's a pretty big knife, about 9.75 inches, and that's from tip to chin. And then the overall length's about 15.25 inches, roughly. The spine thickness, again, these are pretty thin, 1.8 millimeters, and then the blade thickness pretty much just stays the same all the way down till you hit the very end where the grind kicks in and then the tip thins out. And so the tip's not super skinny, and they don't have a lot of distal taper. Now the blade itself is already fairly thin, but again, the tip's not like wafer thin. But it does thin out appropriately as it gets to the grind. The height on this one's about 50.2 millimeters from spine to edge at the back of the blade. And then the handles are octagonal, walnut with paca wood, so they're ambidextrous, black paca wood ferrule. And the circumference on this one is a little bit bigger for the style of knife. So this one's about 83 millimeters in circumference, or 3.25 inches where the wood meets the ferrule. And let's take a closer look at the knife. Let me back off a minute. We'll do the balance point. So the balance point on this blade is right about there, a little bit in front of the kanji. And my pinch grip's a little behind there. So even though this is a fairly middleweight knife or lightweight knife, you get a little bit of weight-forward weight bias to it, balance point, and it gives you a little bit of cutting power and feel. So let's take a look at it. So they've got kind of a semi-polished look to these, and you can see you've got the grind kind of showing up on this one. These are going to be a little different from knife to knife, but the grind is kind of right in there. You can see the light change. This is more of a finished line here, just on how they did the knife finish. It's not a grind line, but you can definitely see where the grind line is. Let's go to the back of the blade. Same thing. You can see the grind line. We kind of show you right in there. There's the grind. Pretty easy to see that. On the right side of the blade, you've got some embossed kanji. And on the left side of the blade, the back side of the blade, you've got some hand chiseled kanji for a nice artisan touch. So you've got some chiseled kanji. You can run your fingers over it and feel it. It's not super deep, but it's definitely hand chiseled. It's a nice touch. The fit and finish is pretty good on these. They're not super polished. The spine is somewhat polished, but it's been relieved a little bit. It's got a few pits here and there on it, and so that could be, you could clean that up a little if you wanted to make it more polished. It wouldn't be that hard, but it's been relieved just a little bit, and also the back of the blade just a little bit. So some people might want to do that a little bit more, and it's pretty easy to take some sandpaper to that, and 10-minute job, and you can clean this up if you want to, or you can just use it as is. These do have lacquer coating on the blade for protection, and so the out-of-the-box edges are okay, maybe 4 out of 10, but I would go ahead and either sharpen this if you sharpen yourself as soon as you get it out of the box, or if you don't sharpen, have Chef Knives to go sharpen it for you. They charge for the service, but that'll give you a good reference point for just how sharp a knife can get, and again, a good reference point of sharpness, which is important, and they'll put a really nice edge on it, so when they pull it out of the box, it's ready to rock and roll. Or again, if you sharpen, put your own edge on it out of the box. The handle install I do need to make you aware of. On this one, they might be a little different from knife to knife, but in general, these have recessed glue in there, so there's a spot for moisture to form, so I would seal that up with something, beeswax, or I like 2-part epoxy. I use clear 2-part epoxy, but whatever you want to put in there, you need something to clean that up and seal it up so you don't get moisture in there. These are ground pretty thin at the edge, so they're overall thin, but they're also ground thin at the very edge. And let's take a look at the profile of this one. Again, the tips aren't super skinny. I'm not just going to ghost, but the general edge is quite thinly ground. And let's take a look. So you'll see this just has kind of a gentle, kind of overall middle-of-the-road profile. You've got a bit of belly towards the front, you get a little bit of flat towards the rear, and a pretty gentle curve the rest of the way. So the midpoint of the tip is, I should say the tip is fairly high on the relation to the center line of the blade, so you can get a little bit of distance here, I should say height on your rock. Now every blade can be a little different, that's what this one is, but you can see I can rock that real nicely, and I've got a little bit of flat towards the rear. So I'd say this is a pretty versatile profile. If you're a pure chopper, no, but again, for the rest of the types of knife strokes, I think it's pretty versatile. So there's your overall profile. So just a nice set of features. You've got a good blue number 2 core steel, you've got stainless cladding, you've got a thin blade, you've got hand chiseled kanji. You know, it's an overall nice package. So this might be an option for you if this is something you're looking for. There you have the Yoshimitsu blue number 2 Gyuto 240mm knife.